My name is Nicole Bennett. I'm 28 years old. And after winning $3.2 million in the state lottery using numbers I had played faithfully for over 3 years, my mother Sandra and father Frank immediately demanded that I split my prize money with my unemployed brother Tyler because family shares everything, then physically destroyed what they believed was my winning ticket when I refused to sacrifice my financial freedom for his latest failed business scheme. What they didn't know was that their cruel attempt to teach me about family obligations by shredding my lottery ticket had actually destroyed a photocopy I had strategically placed in my purse, while my real winning ticket remained safely secured in a bank safety deposit box where their manipulative sabotage couldn't reach it. The lottery ticket that would change my life forever had been purchased using the same combination of numbers I had played religiously every week for 3 years and 2 months, a ritual that had become as automatic as paying bills or grocery shopping. The numbers weren't random selections but meaningful dates and ages that represented the most important moments and people in my life. My grandmother's birthday, the date I graduated from college, my best friend's wedding anniversary, and the age my grandfather lived to before passing away peacefully in his sleep. "You're wasting money on those lottery tickets," my brother Tyler would say whenever he saw me filling out my weekly play slip at the convenience store near my apartment. "The odds of winning are so ridiculous that you'd have better luck getting struck by lightning twice in the same day." Tyler's criticism of my lottery playing was particularly ironic since he regularly spent far more money on get-rich-quick schemes, cryptocurrency investments, and business ventures that promised immediate returns, but consistently resulted in requests for family financial assistance when his plans inevitably failed. My $10 weekly lottery budget was modest compared to his hundreds of dollars in monthly speculation on opportunities that never materialized into sustainable income. "I play the same numbers every week because consistency matters," I would reply when family members questioned my lottery habit. "It's entertainment that costs less than a movie ticket, and if I ever win anything, I'll know it was because I stuck with my strategy instead of constantly changing approaches." My grandmother had taught me about the importance of persistence and consistency when I was young, sharing stories about how she had saved nickels and dimes for decades to buy her first house during the Great Depression, when most people believed home ownership was impossible for working-class families. Her lesson about steady progress toward long-term goals had influenced my approach to both career development and financial planning, including my decision to play the same lottery numbers week after week rather than chasing different combinations. The Wednesday evening that would transform my life began like any other, with me stopping at Martinez Corner Store after work to purchase my weekly lottery ticket and a bottle of water for the drive home to my small one-bedroom apartment that I had been renting for 4 years while saving money for a house down payment that seemed to grow more elusive as real estate prices continued climbing faster than my salary increases. "Same numbers again this week, Nicole?" asked Carlos, the store owner who had been selling me lottery tickets for years and knew my routine as well as I did. "Always the same numbers," I replied with a smile as I handed him my $10 bill and watched him process my play slip through the lottery terminal that would generate the ticket containing my life-changing combination. I folded the ticket carefully and placed it in my wallet's designated lottery compartment, where it would remain until the Saturday night drawing that I always watched while eating dinner and reviewing my weekly budget spreadsheets. The routine had become comforting in its predictability, a small ritual that connected me to hopes and dreams that felt manageable and realistic rather than overwhelming or desperate. Saturday evening arrived with the usual mixture of anticipation and resigned expectation that characterized my relationship with lottery playing. I had never won more than $50 in over 3 years of consistent play, but the modest victories had been enough to maintain my interest and justify the small weekly expense as reasonable entertainment that funded education programs throughout the state. Tonight could be different, I thought to myself as I prepared my usual Saturday dinner of grilled chicken and roasted vegetables, while the lottery drawing program began with its familiar music and enthusiastic host, who made every number announcement sound like the most exciting event in television history. The first number called was 07, my grandmother's birthday month, and I felt the familiar flutter of excitement that came with matching the opening number of my chosen combination. The second number was 23, my college graduation date, and my heart rate increased as I realized I was matching numbers that had never aligned this perfectly during all my months of consistent playing. Have you ever experienced that surreal moment when something you've hoped for but never really expected suddenly becomes reality? That's exactly what I felt as the third, fourth, and fifth numbers matched my ticket exactly, and I found myself staring at a perfect match that represented more money than I had ever imagined possessing in my entire lifetime. The final number, 31, was my grandfather's age when he married my grandmother, and when it matched my ticket, I felt a combination of shock, disbelief, and overwhelming gratitude that seemed to connect me spiritually to the grandparents who had taught me about persistence, consistency, and the importance of planning for the future even when the present seemed challenging or uncertain. "I won," I whispered to my empty apartment, holding the lottery ticket with shaking hands as I verified the numbers again and again to make sure I wasn't hallucinating or misreading the combination that had just transformed me from a struggling renter into a millionaire with the financial freedom to pursue dreams I had been postponing for years. The $3. $2 million prize represented more than just money. It represented the ability to complete my master's degree without student loan debt, purchase a home in a neighborhood I actually wanted to live in, start the nonprofit organization I had been planning since college, and build long-term financial security that would allow me to make career choices based on passion rather than survival necessity. My first instinct was to share the incredible news with my family, but as I reached for my phone to call my parents, I hesitated as I remembered their attitudes toward money and their expectations about family financial sharing that had become increasingly demanding as Tyler's employment and business failures had created more frequent requests for assistance and bailouts. Maybe I should wait until I claim the prize and understand all the tax implications before telling anyone, I thought, remembering stories I had heard about lottery winners whose families and friends had created pressure and expectations that transformed their good fortune into relationship disasters and financial stress rather than the freedom and security they had hoped to achieve. But the excitement was too overwhelming to keep completely secret, and I decided to call my parents Sunday morning to share my incredible news, while hoping they would celebrate my good fortune, rather than immediately calculating how my winnings could solve Tyler's latest financial problems or fund family projects that I had never agreed to support. The phone call that would reveal my family's true priorities and launch the most manipulative campaign I had ever experienced began Sunday morning when I called my parents with genuine excitement about sharing my life-changing news with people I assumed would be happy about my good fortune and proud of my consistent approach to lottery playing finally paying off in a spectacular way. "Mom, I have incredible news," I said when Sandra answered the phone, unable to contain my enthusiasm about the lottery win that had kept me awake most of the night, planning and dreaming about all the possibilities my prize money would create for my future education, career development, and long-term financial security. "What kind of news, honey?" Sandra replied with the cautious tone she used when she suspected I might be calling to share information that would somehow create expectations or obligations for the family, rather than recognizing that I was the family member who consistently avoided asking for help or creating financial burdens for others. "I won the lottery," I announced with pride and excitement, expecting congratulations and celebration from parents who had witnessed my years of consistent playing and careful financial planning. I matched all 6 numbers and won $3. $2 million! The silence that followed my announcement was longer and more uncomfortable than I had expected, and when Sandra finally responded, her tone was calculating rather than celebratory, immediately shifting from surprise about my good fortune to analysis of how my winnings could be distributed to benefit other family members. "That's wonderful news, Nicole," Sandra said with obvious restraint that suggested she was already thinking about implications beyond my personal happiness. "Have you thought about how you're going to handle this much money responsibly, and what it means for your obligations to family members who might need assistance?" The immediate focus on obligations to family members rather than congratulations about my personal achievement was both disappointing and predictable, since Sandra had consistently treated my financial stability as a resource that should be available to solve Tyler's problems, rather than recognizing my success as the result of planning and discipline that deserved protection and respect. I'm planning to pay off my student loans, buy a house, and maybe go back to school for my master's degree, I replied, sharing the dreams I had been cultivating for years and that suddenly seemed achievable thanks to my lottery winnings. I also want to start an emergency fund and maybe invest some of the money for long-term financial security. Nicole, those are all very selfish goals, Sandra responded with disappointment that revealed how quickly my family was reframing my good fortune as an opportunity for redistribution, rather than celebrating my personal achievement. You're thinking about yourself when you should be thinking about how this money could help the whole family, especially Tyler, who really needs a fresh start right now. The characterization of my educational goals and financial security planning as selfish, while suggesting that Tyler's needs were more legitimate than my own dreams, was both hurtful and revealing about Sandra's understanding of family financial responsibilities and personal achievement. Mom, I worked hard and played the same numbers consistently for over 3 years, I said, trying to maintain my excitement about the win while defending my right to keep the money I had won through my own choices and persistence. This is my lottery ticket and my prize money to use for my own goals and financial security. Nicole, family shares everything, especially when someone is blessed with good fortune that could solve problems for people they love, Sandra replied with the kind of moral manipulation that had characterized family financial discussions throughout my adult life. Tyler has been struggling with employment and debt for years, and this money could give him the fresh start he needs to become successful and independent. No. Have you ever been told that your personal achievement was actually a family resource that should be redistributed based on other people's needs, rather than your own plans and dreams? That's exactly what I was experiencing as Sandra immediately reframed my lottery victory as a family windfall rather than my individual success. What exactly are you suggesting I should do? I asked, already dreading the answer, but needing to understand the scope of what Sandra was expecting from me in terms of family financial sharing. Tyler should get half of the lottery money, Sandra announced, as if this was an obvious and reasonable expectation, rather than a demand that I sacrifice my financial freedom for someone who had never demonstrated financial responsibility or sustainable employment. He needs $1. $6 million to pay off his debts and start the business he's been planning. The casual suggestion that Tyler should receive half of my lottery winnings to fund his latest business scheme was both shocking and revealing about Sandra's understanding of fairness, personal responsibility, and the relationship between effort and reward in family financial matters. Mom, Tyler didn't buy the lottery ticket or choose the numbers or play consistently for 3 years, I replied, trying to establish basic principles of ownership and personal achievement that seemed to be completely absent from Sandra's approach to my winnings. Why should he receive money he didn't earn from a ticket he didn't purchase? Because he's your brother, and he needs help more than you need luxuries, Sandra responded with dismissive confidence about my financial planning and complete disregard for the years of discipline and consistency that had led to my lottery success. You have a job and an apartment. Tyler has debts and needs startup capital to build a business that could support him for the rest of his life. The comparison between my job and apartment and Tyler's debts and business needs ignored the fundamental differences in our approaches to financial responsibility, career development, and long-term planning that had created our different circumstances and outcomes. Besides, Sandra continued, keeping all that money for yourself would be greedy and selfish behavior that goes against everything we taught you about family values and helping people you love. The moral manipulation combined with family guilt was designed to make me feel ashamed of wanting to keep my own lottery winnings rather than redistributing them to solve Tyler's self-created financial problems through approaches that had consistently failed in the past. As the phone call continued, I began to understand that Sandra's demands weren't just suggestions about generous sharing, but ultimatums about family loyalty and moral character that would determine my standing within family relationships based on my willingness to sacrifice my financial freedom for Tyler's immediate needs and unrealistic business plans. The family pressure campaign escalated dramatically over the following week, as Sandra enlisted my father Frank and extended family members to support her demand that I redistribute half of my lottery winnings to Tyler, treating my personal achievement as a family resource that should be allocated based on need rather than effort or ownership. Nicole, your mother told me about the lottery situation, and I think you need to seriously consider Tyler's financial problems before making any decisions about how to use that money. Frank called me Tuesday evening with obvious coordination with Sandra's manipulation campaign. Your brother has been struggling for years, and this could be his chance to finally achieve the success he deserves. The characterization of Tyler's consistent unemployment and business failures as deserving success that should be funded by my lottery winnings was both logically absurd and emotionally manipulative, since it ignored his pattern of poor decisions while treating my disciplined consistency as less worthy of reward than his repeated failures. Dad, I earned this money by playing the same numbers every week for over 3 years, I replied, trying once again to establish the connection between personal effort and personal reward that seemed completely absent from my family's understanding of lottery winnings. Tyler never bought lottery tickets or participated in the consistent playing that led to this win. Nicole, success isn't just about individual effort, it's about family members supporting each other when someone needs help. Frank responded with the same moral framework that Sandra had used to justify her demands for wealth redistribution. You have the opportunity to change Tyler's entire life trajectory, and refusing to help him would be incredibly selfish. The guilt-based manipulation was becoming more intense as multiple family members coordinated their efforts to overcome my resistance to funding Tyler's latest business venture through my lottery winnings, rather than respecting my plans for education, home ownership, and long-term financial security. Tyler is your only brother, and family relationships are more important than money. My Aunt Patricia called Wednesday to add her voice to the pressure campaign. You can still buy a house and go to school even if you share half the lottery money with Tyler. He needs this opportunity more than you need all that extra money for personal expenses. The dismissal of my educational goals and financial security planning as personal expenses, while treating Tyler's debt relief and business funding as legitimate family needs, was both insulting and revealing about how extended family members viewed my achievements versus Tyler's problems. Besides, Patricia continued, what would your grandmother think if she knew you kept all that money instead of helping your brother when he really needed support? She always taught us that family members should help each other succeed. The invocation of my deceased grandmother's values in service of demands she never would have supported was particularly cruel and manipulative, since my grandmother had consistently emphasized personal responsibility, hard work, and earning your own success rather than expecting others to fund your dreams. Have you ever been told that a deceased family member would disapprove of your financial responsibility because you wouldn't enable someone else's continued irresponsibility? That's exactly what I was experiencing as family members used my grandmother's memory to justify their demands for lottery money redistribution. Tyler called me crying about his debts and how much this lottery money could help him finally become successful. My cousin Jennifer added her voice to the campaign Thursday evening. He's really counting on you to do the right thing and share your good fortune with family members who need it more than you do. The emotional manipulation involving Tyler's crying about his financial problems, while positioning my lottery winnings as the solution to difficulties he had created through his own poor choices, was designed to make me feel guilty about protecting my financial future, rather than enabling his continued dependence on family bailouts. But while my family's pressure campaign was becoming more coordinated and emotionally intense, I was also beginning to understand that their demands represented a fundamental threat not just to my lottery winnings, but to my personal autonomy and right to make decisions about my own financial future based on my own goals and values. I need to think about this situation carefully, I told each family member who called to pressure me about sharing my lottery money with Tyler. This is a life-changing amount of money, and I want to make sure I handle it responsibly. The requests for time to consider their demands were met with increasing impatience, and suggestions that my hesitation proved I was being selfish and greedy, rather than recognizing that I was trying to make thoughtful decisions about resources that would determine my financial security for decades to come. "Nicole, what's there to think about?" Sandra called Friday morning with obvious frustration at my continued resistance to her ultimatum. "Tyler needs help, you have money, and family members should support each other. The longer you wait, the more selfish you look to everyone who knows about this situation." The characterization of careful financial planning as looking selfish, while treating immediate redistribution as moral behavior, was designed to pressure me into making hasty decisions that would benefit Tyler while potentially destroying my long-term financial security and personal dreams. But what my family didn't understand was that their increasing pressure and emotional manipulation was actually strengthening my resolve to protect my lottery winnings from people who viewed my personal achievement as their collective resource, and who were willing to use guilt, family obligation, and moral judgment to overcome my resistance to their demands. The woman who had won $3. $2 million through consistent lottery playing was about to demonstrate that protecting financial success from family manipulation required both strategic thinking and the courage to maintain boundaries even when people you loved were determined to exploit your achievements for their own benefit. The final confrontation that would reveal my family's willingness to destroy what they couldn't control arrived Saturday evening when Sandra called to deliver an ultimatum that would expose their true character while testing my preparation and strategic thinking about protecting my lottery winnings from family sabotage. "Nicole, your father and I have been discussing this lottery situation all week, and we've decided that we need to have a family meeting tonight to resolve this issue once and for all," Sandra announced with the authoritative tone she used when she intended to force compliance rather than negotiate or discuss different perspectives. "What kind of family meeting?" I asked, already suspecting that Sandra had planned some form of intervention designed to overcome my continued resistance to redistributing half of my lottery winnings to fund Tyler's debts and latest business scheme. "We're all coming over to your apartment at 7 o'clock to discuss your responsibilities as a family member and help you understand why sharing your lottery money with Tyler is the right thing to do," Sandra replied with obvious coordination and planning that suggested this wasn't a spontaneous discussion, but a carefully orchestrated pressure campaign. "Mom, I don't want a family meeting at my apartment about my personal financial decisions," I said, trying to maintain appropriate boundaries while understanding that Sandra's demand for access to my home was part of a strategy to create maximum pressure and minimize my ability to escape or end uncomfortable conversations. "Nicole, this isn't optional," Sandra responded, with the kind of finality that indicated she had moved beyond requests and suggestions to demands and ultimatums. "If you won't voluntarily do the right thing and share your lottery money, then we need to help you understand your obligations through more direct intervention." The threat of more direct intervention was both vague and ominous, suggesting that Sandra had planned some form of confrontation or coercion that would force me to comply with her demands, rather than respecting my right to make independent decisions about my own financial resources. But while Sandra was planning her intervention, I was also making preparations based on my growing understanding that my family viewed my lottery winnings as their collective property and might attempt to sabotage my ability to claim my prize if they couldn't convince me to redistribute the money according to their expectations. Earlier that week, I had taken my winning lottery ticket to First National Bank and placed it in a safety deposit box that only I could access, while making several high-quality photocopies that were nearly indistinguishable from the original ticket in appearance and detail. My intuition about potential family interference had motivated me to protect the real ticket while keeping a copy in my purse for daily carry. If they're planning some kind of intervention or confrontation, they might try to take or destroy my lottery ticket to force me into compliance, I thought as I prepared for Sandra's threatened family meeting. But they can't destroy what they can't access, and anything they find in my possession will be a worthless copy. Have you ever prepared for family sabotage by protecting your most valuable possessions from people who claimed to love you but were actually planning to control or destroy your success? That's exactly what I was doing as I anticipated my family's potential escalation from emotional manipulation to direct interference with my lottery winnings. At 7:15 p.m., my parents, Tyler and Aunt Patricia, arrived at my apartment, with the kind of coordinated timing and serious expressions that confirmed Sandra's intervention was a planned operation designed to overcome my resistance through group pressure and emotional manipulation that would be difficult to escape or counter. "Nicole, we need to talk about your selfish behavior regarding the lottery money," Sandra began immediately after entering my apartment, without even basic pleasantries or acknowledgement that she was invading my personal space to conduct an intervention I had explicitly declined. "We've all discussed this situation extensively, and we agree that keeping all that money for yourself while Tyler struggles with debts and unemployment is morally wrong behavior that goes against everything we taught you about family values," Frank added with obvious coordination and preparation that revealed how much planning had gone into this confrontation. "Nicole, I really need this money to finally get my life together," Tyler said with the kind of emotional pleading that was designed to make me feel guilty about protecting my financial future rather than funding his continued avoidance of personal responsibility and sustainable employment. "Everyone agrees that you should give Tyler half of the lottery money," Patricia added her voice to the coordinated pressure campaign. "It's not fair for you to have so much while your brother has so little, especially when sharing would help him become successful and independent." The group intervention was both emotionally overwhelming and strategically designed to make me feel isolated and outnumbered by people who were presenting unified opposition to my financial independence while characterizing my personal dreams and goals as selfish behavior that harmed family relationships. "I understand that you want to help Tyler, but this is my lottery ticket and my prize money," I said, trying to maintain my position while dealing with the psychological pressure of 4 family members who were determined to override my personal autonomy and financial decision-making authority. "Nicole, if you won't voluntarily share the lottery money, then maybe you don't deserve to have it at all," Sandra replied with a threat that immediately escalated the confrontation from persuasion and manipulation to direct coercion and potential sabotage. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, feeling increasingly alarmed about Sandra's willingness to move beyond emotional manipulation to actual interference with my ability to claim and keep my lottery winnings. "I mean that if you're going to be selfish and greedy with money that could help your family, then maybe losing that money would teach you an important lesson about what really matters in life," Sandra said while moving closer to my purse, which was sitting on my kitchen counter and contained what she believed was my winning lottery ticket. The direct threat to my lottery winnings was exactly what I had anticipated and prepared for, and as Sandra reached for my purse with obvious intent to take or destroy my ticket, I felt a mixture of outrage at her betrayal and satisfaction that I had protected my real winning ticket from exactly this kind of family sabotage. "Mom, you can't just take my lottery ticket," I said, making a show of trying to protect my purse while knowing that the copy inside was worthless and that Sandra's attempt to control my winnings would only expose her willingness to destroy what she couldn't redistribute. "Watch me," Sandra replied as she grabbed my purse and dumped its contents onto my kitchen counter, quickly locating the photocopied lottery ticket that looked identical to the original and represented what she believed was my $3.2 million prize. "If sharing means nothing to you, then having nothing to share should teach you about family priorities," Sandra announced as she held up the lottery ticket copy and began tearing it into pieces while Tyler, Frank, and Patricia watched with approval and satisfaction that they were teaching me a lesson about family obligations through destruction of my personal property. The moment when Sandra destroyed what she believed was my winning lottery ticket was both heartbreaking and vindicating, as I watched my mother reveal her willingness to sabotage my financial future rather than respect my right to make independent decisions about my own achievements and resources. But as I watched the worthless pieces of paper flutter to my kitchen floor, I found myself unable to stop smiling, because Sandra's cruel gesture had exposed her true character, while leaving my real lottery ticket completely safe and secure in the bank safety deposit box where her destructive behavior couldn't reach it. The shock and devastation that my family expected to see on my face was replaced by a growing sense of satisfaction and vindication as I realized that their cruelest possible behavior had backfired completely, revealing their moral bankruptcy while failing to achieve any of their intended goals for controlling or redistributing my lottery winnings. The moment when Sandra finished destroying what she believed was my $3. 2 million lottery ticket should have been the most devastating experience of my life. But instead, I found myself feeling an overwhelming sense of relief and vindication as I watched my family celebrate what they thought was my financial destruction, while remaining completely unaware that their sabotage had been directed against a worthless photocopy. "There," Sandra said with obvious satisfaction as she brushed the paper fragments off her hands. "Now nobody gets the lottery money, and maybe you'll learn something important about putting family needs before personal greed." The twisted logic that destroying my lottery winnings was somehow a victory for family values, while ignoring the cruelty and selfishness of their own behavior, was both psychologically revealing and morally bankrupt. But it was also completely ineffective since my real ticket remained safely protected from their destructive intervention. "Mom, I can't believe you just destroyed my lottery ticket," I said with perfectly genuine shock at her willingness to sabotage my financial future, even though I knew the destruction was meaningless and my real winning ticket was secure in the bank safety deposit box. "Nicole, maybe now you'll understand that family relationships are more important than money," Frank said with obvious approval of Sandra's destructive gesture. "We had to teach you a lesson about priorities, and hopefully this experience will help you make better decisions in the future." The moral lecturing while celebrating the destruction of what they believed was my financial security was both hypocritical and revealing about their complete inability to recognize the cruelty and selfishness of their own behavior while condemning mine. "Tyler, your sister just learned an important lesson about family obligations." Sandra turned to my brother with obvious pride in her destructive intervention. "Hopefully she'll be more cooperative when the next opportunity comes along for her to help family members who really need assistance." The expectation that destroying my lottery winnings would make me more cooperative with future family financial demands demonstrated their fundamental misunderstanding of both human nature and the consequences of their betrayal. But it also revealed their long-term strategy of using cruelty and sabotage to control my financial decisions. Have you ever watched people celebrate what they believed was your destruction, while remaining completely unaware that their cruelty had been directed against something worthless? That's exactly what I was experiencing as my family congratulated themselves on teaching me a lesson, while my real lottery ticket remained completely safe from their destructive behavior. "I think we've accomplished what we came here to do," Patricia announced with satisfaction about the successful completion of their intervention. "Nicole has learned that keeping all that money for herself wasn't an option, and now she can focus on rebuilding her relationship with family members who were trying to help her make better choices." The reframing of their destructive sabotage as help with making better choices, while treating my financial independence as a problem that needed correction, was both manipulative and absurd, but it also revealed how completely they had convinced themselves that their behavior was justified and beneficial. "Maybe next time you'll listen when family members try to give you good advice about sharing and generosity," Tyler added his voice to their celebration of what they believed was my financial destruction. "I still would have been willing to work with you on the business venture, but now we'll have to find other ways to solve my debt problems." The suggestion that he would have been willing to work with me on spending my lottery money while treating the destruction of my winnings as my fault, rather than acknowledging his role in demanding redistribution, was both entitled and delusional. But it also demonstrated his complete inability to understand personal responsibility or the relationship between choices and consequences. As my family prepared to leave my apartment after what they believed was their successful intervention and lesson about family priorities, I realized that the moment had come to reveal the truth about their ineffective sabotage and the reality that their destruction had been directed against a worthless copy, while my real lottery ticket remained completely protected from their manipulation. "Before you leave, I want to show you something," I said with the calmest voice I could manage while reaching for my phone to display the photograph I had taken of my real lottery ticket before placing it in the safety deposit box. "What are you talking about, Nicole?" Sandra asked with obvious confusion about why I would want to share anything with family members who had just demonstrated their willingness to destroy my personal property to force compliance with their financial demands. "I'm talking about this," I said, holding up my phone to show them a clear photograph of my winning lottery ticket, with all 6 matching numbers clearly visible and identifiable. "The ticket you just destroyed was a photocopy I made for my records. My real winning ticket has been safely secured in a bank safety deposit box since Tuesday." The silence that followed my revelation was unlike anything I had ever experienced, as 4 family members simultaneously processed the reality that their cruel sabotage had been completely ineffective, and that their destructive behavior had exposed their true character without achieving any of their intended goals. "That's impossible," Sandra whispered as she stared at the photograph that clearly showed an intact lottery ticket with the winning numbers, while paper fragments from the destroyed photocopy remained scattered across my kitchen floor. "It's not only possible, it's exactly what happened," I replied with growing satisfaction at their shock and dismay. "I knew you might try to take or destroy my ticket if you couldn't convince me to share the money, so I protected the real ticket and carried a worthless copy in my purse." "You deliberately tricked us into destroying a fake ticket?" Frank asked with obvious disbelief that I had anticipated and prepared for their potential sabotage, rather than trusting them to respect my personal property and financial autonomy. "I didn't trick you into anything," I replied with perfect accuracy about the situation. "You chose to destroy what you thought was my lottery ticket to teach me a lesson about family obligations. I just made sure that your destructive behavior couldn't actually harm my financial future." Have you ever felt the satisfaction of watching people realize that their attempt to sabotage your success had been completely ineffective because you had prepared for their betrayal? That's exactly what I was experiencing as my family understood that their cruelest possible behavior had accomplished nothing except exposing their willingness to destroy my achievements for Tyler's benefit. "Nicole, if you had the real ticket secured all along, why didn't you stop us from destroying the copy?" Tyler asked with confusion about why I had allowed them to proceed with their destructive gesture rather than preventing their sabotage attempt. "Because I wanted to see if you would actually go through with destroying what you thought was my lottery ticket," I replied with honesty about my motivation for allowing their behavior to continue. "I needed to know how far you were willing to go to control my financial decisions. And now I have my answer." The revelation that their destructive behavior had been a test of their character rather than an effective sabotage of my lottery winnings was both embarrassing and enlightening for family members who had revealed their willingness to harm my financial future while claiming to act out of love and concern for family welfare. "So you're still going to claim the full $3? $2 million lottery prize?" Patricia asked with obvious disappointment that their intervention had failed to achieve any of their intended goals for forcing wealth redistribution or teaching me lessons about family financial sharing. "I'm going to claim my lottery winnings exactly as I originally planned." I confirmed with satisfaction that their manipulation and sabotage had been completely unsuccessful. "I'll pay off my student loans, buy a house, and use the money for my education and long-term financial security." The confirmation that their family intervention had been not only ineffective but counterproductive was devastating for people who had invested significant time and emotional energy in planning and executing what they believed would be successful coercion and control of my financial resources. As my family left my apartment that evening, subdued and defeated by the failure of their destructive intervention, I realized that their behavior had permanently damaged our relationships while strengthening my resolve to protect my financial independence from people who had demonstrated their willingness to sabotage my success rather than celebrate my achievements. The lottery ticket that remained secure in my bank safety deposit box represented not just $3, $2 million in prize money, but also my successful defense of personal autonomy against family members who had tried to control my financial future through emotional manipulation and direct sabotage. The vindication of successfully protecting my lottery winnings from family sabotage was immediately followed by the practical and satisfying process of claiming my $3.2 million prize while my family faced the reality that their destructive behavior had accomplished nothing except permanently damaging their relationships with the daughter and sister whose financial success they had tried to control and redistribute. Monday morning arrived with the liberating knowledge that my real lottery ticket remained safely secured, while my family's attempt to destroy my financial future had exposed their true character without affecting my ability to claim my prize. The bank safety deposit box that had seemed like excessive precaution a week earlier had proven to be exactly the protection I needed against people who claimed to love me while planning to sabotage my achievements. "I'd like to access my safety deposit box," I told the bank manager when I arrived at First National Bank with all the required identification and documentation necessary to retrieve my winning lottery ticket from its secure location. "Certainly, Ms. Bennett," the manager replied professionally as she verified my identity and escorted me to the private viewing room where I could safely examine my lottery ticket before proceeding to the state lottery office for official prize claim processing. The moment when I held my real winning lottery ticket in my hands again, seeing the intact numbers that matched Saturday's drawing perfectly, was both emotionally satisfying and practically significant as I prepared to transform my $10 weekly lottery investment into $3.2 million in life-changing prize money. The state lottery office was located downtown in a building I had driven past hundreds of times but never imagined entering as a winner of their largest prize category. The security guards, reception staff, and claims processing specialists all treated lottery winners with professional courtesy that acknowledged both the significance of the moment and the importance of protecting winners' privacy during the claim process. "Ms. Bennett, congratulations on your lottery win," the claims specialist said as she examined my ticket and verified the numbers against official drawing records. "Your ticket matches all 6 numbers from Saturday's drawing, which qualifies you for the $3.2 million jackpot prize." The official confirmation of my win was both thrilling and surreal, as months of playing the same numbers faithfully had finally resulted in the exact combination I had hoped for during 3 years of consistent lottery participation. "We'll need to discuss your payment options, tax implications, and publicity preferences," the specialist continued, as we began the process of converting my lottery ticket into actual financial resources that would transform my life and provide the independence I had dreamed of for years. The payment options included a lump sum of approximately $1.9 million after taxes, or annuity payments of $160,000 per year for 20 years, and I chose the lump sum option that would provide immediate access to resources I could invest and manage according to my own financial goals and timeline. "Your prize money will be electronically transferred to your designated bank account within 5 business days," the specialist explained as we completed the final paperwork that would officially convert my lottery ticket into the largest financial windfall of my lifetime. Have you ever experienced the profound satisfaction of achieving a goal that people tried to prevent you from reaching through sabotage and manipulation? That's exactly what I felt as I completed the lottery claim process, while knowing that my family's destructive behavior had failed to interfere with my financial success. The $1.9 million after-tax lottery prize was more money than I had ever imagined possessing, and it represented the financial freedom to pursue educational goals, career opportunities, and personal dreams that had seemed impossible when I was limited by my modest salary and the financial obligations that characterized my pre-lottery life. But while I was claiming my lottery prize and planning my financially independent future, my family was dealing with the aftermath of their failed sabotage attempt and the realization that their destructive behavior had permanently damaged their relationships with someone whose success they should have celebrated rather than trying to control and redistribute. "Nicole hasn't returned any of our phone calls since Saturday night," Sandra called Tyler Tuesday evening to discuss their unsuccessful intervention and my continued refusal to engage with family members who had attempted to destroy what they thought was my lottery ticket. "She's probably still angry about us destroying the copy of her ticket," Tyler replied with obvious misunderstanding about the significance of their behavior and its impact on our family relationships. "Maybe she'll get over it once she realizes we were just trying to help her make better decisions about sharing." The expectation that I would get over their attempt to sabotage my financial future while continuing to characterize their destructive behavior as help with decision-making demonstrated their complete inability to understand the magnitude of their betrayal or the permanent nature of its consequences for our family relationships. "I still think she should share some of the lottery money with Tyler," Patricia added her voice to their post-sabotage discussions. "Just because our intervention didn't work doesn't mean she's off the hook for her family obligations." The continued insistence on family obligations, after attempting to destroy what they thought was my lottery ticket, revealed their fundamental inability to recognize the connection between their behavior and the consequences they were experiencing in terms of damaged relationships and lost access to the financial resources they had tried to control. "Maybe we should try a different approach to convince her about sharing the money," Frank suggested during their Wednesday family meeting about managing their failed intervention. "If emotional pressure and direct confrontation didn't work, we might need to find other ways to influence her decision-making." Or, the discussion of alternative manipulation strategies after their destructive sabotage had failed was both disturbing and irrelevant, since their behavior had permanently altered my willingness to maintain relationships with people who viewed my achievements as their collective property and who were prepared to harm me to advance Tyler's interests. But while my family planned additional manipulation attempts and continued to discuss my lottery winnings as if they had legitimate claims to redistribution, I was already using my prize money to build the independent life I had dreamed of for years, starting with educational investments that would enhance my long-term earning potential and career opportunities. "I'd like to enroll in the master's degree program starting this fall," I told the university admissions counselor when I called to inquire about graduate school opportunities that had previously seemed financially impossible due to student loan concerns and living expenses. The graduate program that would have required years of saving and careful financial planning was now immediately accessible thanks to my lottery winnings, representing the kind of educational investment that my family had dismissed as selfish, while demanding I fund Tyler's latest business scheme instead. 6 weeks after claiming my lottery prize, I had purchased a beautiful 3-bedroom house in the neighborhood where I had always dreamed of living, enrolled in graduate school for the following semester, and established investment accounts that would provide long-term financial security, regardless of career changes or economic challenges that might affect my future earning potential. "Ms. Bennett, your lottery winnings have been invested in a diversified portfolio that should provide excellent returns while preserving your principal for decades to come," my financial advisor explained, as we completed the investment strategy that would ensure my financial independence for the rest of my life. The financial security that my family had tried to destroy through sabotage and redistribution was now permanently protected through professional investment management and strategic planning that would allow me to pursue meaningful career opportunities without worrying about basic financial survival or family financial demands. Meanwhile, Tyler's debt problems continued to worsen without access to my lottery money, and his latest business scheme had failed within a month of its launch, creating additional financial obligations that my parents were struggling to address through their limited retirement resources. "Tyler owes another $18,000 in business debts and can't find employment that pays enough to cover his living expenses and debt payments," Sandra called to inform me about financial problems that she apparently still expected me to solve, despite their attempt to destroy my lottery winnings. "Mom, Tyler's financial problems are not my responsibility," I replied with firm boundaries that had been strengthened by their destructive behavior. "You tried to destroy my lottery ticket to prevent me from keeping money I won through my own consistent playing. You made your priorities clear, and now you get to live with the consequences of those choices." The acknowledgement that their destructive behavior had consequences that extended beyond our damaged relationships to include their loss of access to financial resources they had tried to control was both accurate and final, since their sabotage attempt had permanently eliminated any possibility of voluntary financial assistance from the lottery winner they had tried to manipulate and destroy. 2 years after claiming my lottery prize and completing my master's degree program, I was working in my dream job at a nonprofit organization that I had helped establish using a portion of my lottery winnings, while living in the beautiful home I had purchased with my prize money and enjoying the financial security that my family had tried to prevent me from achieving. Nicole has built such an impressive life with her lottery money, I heard through mutual friends who occasionally provided updates about family members who were no longer part of my daily experience. She seemed so happy and successful compared to how stressed and worried she used to be about money. The happiness and success that had resulted from protecting my lottery winnings from family sabotage and redistribution was exactly what I had hoped to achieve when I first started playing the same numbers faithfully every week for over 3 years, demonstrating that persistence and strategic thinking could overcome both statistical odds and family manipulation. Meanwhile, my family continued to struggle with Tyler's ongoing financial problems and their reduced standard of living without access to the lottery money they had tried to control, while dealing with the knowledge that their destructive behavior had cost them their relationship with the daughter whose success they should have celebrated rather than sabotaging. If you're reading this and you're dealing with family members who view your achievements as their collective property and who might sabotage your success rather than respect your autonomy, please know that protecting your accomplishments from family interference requires both strategic preparation and the courage to maintain boundaries even when people claim to act out of love. Sometimes the people who try to destroy what they can't control reveal more about their own character than about your obligations. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is protect your success from family members who would rather see you fail than succeed independently of their approval and control. If this story resonated with your own experiences, please hit that subscribe button and share your experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to protect your achievements from family members who tried to sabotage or redistribute your success? How did you handle relatives who viewed your personal accomplishments as family resources that should be shared according to their priorities rather than yours? Your story might help someone else who's struggling with similar family manipulation and sabotage. Thank you for joining me on this journey from lottery success through family betrayal to ultimate independence and security. Remember that your achievements belong to you, and that people who would destroy what they can't control ultimately reveal their inability to appreciate or support the success they claim to want for you. See you in our next story here at Her Sweet Revenge.